It's a pretty safe bet at this point between Christmas Day and New Year that if we were asked to choose an adjective to describe family, the word that first came to mind probably wouldn't be holy. And acknowledging this messiness, the frustrations, the love-hate relationships intensified at this time over turkey and alcohol, Gavin and Stacey, is in fact no bad place to start us off thinking about the Holy Family. Precious little is, of course, recorded of Jesus' life between his birth and his public ministry. But in this morning's Gospel, we hear enough to glimpse the familiarities of tension, frustration, misunderstanding. "Child, why have you treated us like this?" asks his mother in great anxiety. "You don't understand," the 12-year-old replies. Another earthly reminder of the wonderful mystery of our salvation, that God really did become man in all that involves. We mustn't let the familiar scenes of Jesus, Mary, Joseph and the wee donkey in Ted Hastings' cutesy cuss, or that family depicted, basted in rich Victoriana, allow us to forget what a strange family this is, or how abnormal and difficult the circumstances of Jesus' birth. St. Matthew's elaborate genealogy of Jesus at the beginning of his Gospel cuts slightly strangely from David's line to Mary, the mother of Christ. His ways are not our ways, or his thoughts our thoughts. At the centre of our orthodoxy is a most unorthodox family unit. I don't know if you've seen Mary on Netflix, starring Anthony Hopkins as Herod. It's not without its flaws, but it is worth a watch to remind and refresh ourselves about the strangeness of this familiar story. We're challenged as Christians always to seek opportunities to let the story of salvation, though the same yesterday, today, and for all time, tell itself afresh in our hearts. In the strain and strangeness, the familiarity and wonder of this gospel passage too, we hear whispered some of the difficult truths of the Lord's message. Who is my mother? Who are my brothers? Jesus asks in all three of the synoptic gospels. Follow me, leave your home and family, goes the children's hymn, based on the disciples' call. We have to admit that Christians of all strains have at times made something of an idol of the family in the face of the gospel's thrust, and have spent all too much energy telling us how our families ought to look. Much wickedness, mostly on the part of men and at the cost of women, has been shown a blind eye under the cover of respectable marriage. And too many souls have been alienated by attitudes of prejudice or not fitting in. In tasteless cases from Eleanor of Aquitaine to Boris Johnson, Rome has afforded absurd loopholes for some, whilst castigating the imperfect lives of others. Pride, power, wealth, lineage, partiality are some of the baser, ungospel motivations that infect certain attitudes toward family. More than 480 children died or were seriously injured in the UK in 2024. The Church has a lot to lament in its own conduct and more to get right. But the sad fact is that the vast majority of incidents of abuse take place within the home and are perpetrated by parents or guardians. None of this is to undermine the real joys of family life, the splendid joys of children. Hidden in the gospel text is the wordless love of two quite baffled parents who yet look through their faith in God and love of their remarkable charge. They come to make room for who God has called him to be, different, no doubt, from what they expected or understood. But at its best, family is a continued, safe space for growth in mutual understanding between generations. Like Mary, we are called to treasure these things in our hearts, to work at family life, even amidst its difficulties. But we're also called not to leave it there, or to turn inwards. Families at their best teach us to look beyond what is merely of blood, or of the will of the flesh, or of the will of man, toward that which is God, of God. Making family across the divisions that still have us boxed off and labelled in today's society, perhaps now more than ever, separated, siloed from one another. We must be inspired by all that is good about family life, to embrace one another more broadly and more closely, to include, to extend, to share in a way that comes instinctively to many natural families, but to make that the pattern of our lives more broadly, in our interactions, in our relationships with all of each other. The Holy Family also teaches us to look for, rejoice in, and nurture love wherever it occurs, however imperfectly. We can't afford in this world not to. We're bidden to be sensitive to the dashed hopes of those who would be parents, kindly in matters of familial breakdown, alert to loneliness, but also respectful of the dignity of the single estate. Our identity is most truly in Jesus Christ, in the family that is his body, the church. Our worth is not dictated by how many children or grandchildren we have. And so on this feast of the Holy Family, let us rejoice in those dear to us. Let us commit ourselves to strengthen our bonds of family and friendship over the year ahead, and promise to do our bit to build up this parish, making in the name of the Holy Family of Bethlehem, the Holy Family of Nazareth, the Holy Family of Margaret Street, a family out of strangers. Amen.